Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Tanya Talks. I'm your host, Tanya Ricketts, and I'm joined by Karen Rose. Karen is a physiotherapist. She is also a one-on-one coach, and I will share with you in a minute how you can find her after the show, that you can reach out to her and work with her. So, Karen, welcome this evening.
Thank you very, very much.
Yeah, so tonight we are going to have a very open, candid conversation on It Takes a Village. It is an area that I have struggled with immensely, asking for help and knowing that it takes a village to help me be successful along the way. So, Karen and I know that you and I have had some conversations offline before, and it's an interesting conversation. So, share with me your journey into understanding, it taking a village.
I'm in the journey. I haven't had a journey because this has been, I would say that this has definitely been one of those challenges for me.
Yes.
Huge is asking for help because, well, it's funny when you first asked me to come on to talk about this, I thought like, what am I going to talk about? You know, and I automatically went to It Takes a Village to Raise Your Children. So I'm thinking about, my children and how, the support and whatnot, the network that we've built around that to support them and in getting towards their goals. It never once occurred to me that it was about me and my journey of working within a community to achieve. And why I say that it's not a journey that I've been on, it's a journey that I am on, because I struggle every day asking people for help. Um, I grew up, I grew up with two brothers, and it was all about, independence. It's about, making it happen for yourself. And
Yes.
somehow it was viewed as a weakness, and I don't think that was ever verbalized. I think that maybe that was just the story that I told myself, that if I'm asking for help, then that means that I'm weak, I don't know, I'm dumb. I don't know what the internal talk was back then, but it's interesting now because it's little things. Like I used to struggle with somebody say, hey, you know what, I'm going to the bar, do you want me to grab you a drink? I'm like, no, I'll go and get it myself. Like, as simple as that. And it took somebody from outside to say, hey, do you realize that you can't even accept you know a drink of water from somebody?
Right.
And I it didn't process for me. It wasn't something that I was aware of. um
Mhm.
and now it certainly is, as I'm looking and I'm growing my business, and I've got all of these goals and things that I'm working on, that nobody can do it themselves. We need each other, and um it is pushing me outside my comfort zones to be able to reach out and say, hey, you know what, I don't know how to do this. I mean, a
Mhm.
lot of it's around technology. If anybody knows me, is technology is not it's not my lane, right? And I always talk about staying in your lane. Technology is not my lane at all, and I'm getting there. I'm forcing myself to learn and stuff, but to learn, I have to ask people, and I guess be vulnerable enough to say, hey, listen, I don't know.
Mhm.
Um, and I think maybe just saying those words out loud, maybe that's what it was. I had to be comfortable being vulnerable to be able to embrace the community to support me.
Right, right. And, I'm going to take it back a little bit and then bring it back to the vulnerability and saying, I don't know. It's interesting because as moms, it takes a village. We automatically, you are absolutely correct that we automatically default into our children. We
Mhm.
never really apply it to ourselves. And even with it taking a village with our children, I can only speak for myself. I remember there were moments where I still took on more of the brunt of it because dare I ever ask for help? It was like, no, I could be the village for everybody else. Take minimal support for myself, even with my kids, but I took it all on, and it wasn't sustainable.
I think that when it came to my children, I mean, I have three, and I know that people used to always talk, don't have three because you've got your husband, you've got you, and then you've got a third. Like, and for there's not enough people to go around, right? To help that one. But we had to ask for help when it came to our kids. There was absolutely no way that we were going to be able to get three of them to three different places at the same time.
Hmm.
I used to work evenings, and so that was left to my husband. And
Hmm.
so if we didn't ask for help when it came to them, they wouldn't be where they're at. I mean, I'm so grateful for the people that we've come across in our lives that it might be carpooling, it might be, can, they stay at your house for an extra hour sort of thing, or can you look after them while we drop them here? We got to go here. And um, that village piece of it allowed us um, to raise our kids and to have them in um, high level athletics. There was just no way that we could do that by ourselves. But you're right; it never translated to me. Um,
And
it's
why is
well,
that?
even still now, right? Like, I mean,
Well,
when
I
you
was
ask
going to
me,
say,
there's
I still am very challenged in the area of, I'm getting a lot better. I have to admit to myself that I am getting better with it, but it's still an area that it's not an autopilot, yes, of course, let's do
Mhm,
this together.
yeah.
I have to stop and breathe and think and say, wait a second, Tanya, remember that it's okay to receive assistance
Mm.
along the way.
And maybe it's not even just about for me, it's not just about assistance. It was me getting comfortable about receiving,
Mhm.
receiving whatever it is. And I think that that goes in hand with the vulnerability piece. When we have these conversations, it's never clear cut. It's never really about the one thing because they all kind of roll into one another, right? Like being able to be vulnerable, being able to step outside your comfort zone, being able to receive,
Mhm.
whatever heading or topic we put on our conversations. It seems to always morph into some similarities because I think that there are challenges that everybody faces um,
Right.
in different scenarios.
Yeah.
But is there a person that that can't say, I've had trouble asking for help, or trouble receiving,
Mhm.
that help?
Well, that's my new
I
narrative. Every show I think I've said in the last 5 episodes, the most unselfish thing that anybody could ever do is to receive.
mm,
Because when we receive and we give to ourselves, then we're able to fill ourselves up in order to give to others. It's interesting, and I agree with what you say in terms of, it's never one thing that drives why we're behaving in the way we are. There are multiple factors and multiple reasons. And I know trust plays a big role for me personally. Um,
mm,
do I trust that people do I trust putting my life in somebody else's hands,
mm,
whether it be small or big? So I tend to, which the answer to that has typically been no. So it's area of growth for me to
mm.
dissolve that narrative that I'm not able to trust people to take care of me. Right. So it is definitely, um, it takes a village. And I just know that for me, it was never sustainable. I was always tired. I was always dragged out. And, the minute I started to invite people in, because I had the narrative of I couldn't trust people to take care of me, I would actually always invite people into my life to prove me right
Mm.
until I woke up to that and was like, that's not true. And it's still a little bit of a journey for me to say, all right, let's prove that theory wrong. Let's prove that story wrong for me.
I think that what we focus on always grows in our lives. And
Hmm.
so if we are always telling ourselves something like, I need to do this myself, or, you know, I can't be vulnerable, or whatever it is, the story, then automatically life shows us things that supports that, right?
Hmm.
So is it the narrative of not trusting people, like going into it and saying, okay, I'm going to see how this works out? Or do you go into the situation saying, okay, like this is going to work out. This is going to, and place that emphasis on it's going to work out. They're going to support me. I trust them, and putting that out there versus putting the reverse out there. Because I
Mhm.
think that whatever it is that we do put out, we automatically get back.
Right. And I have
Um,
to admit, on an unconscious level, I wasn't necessarily going into it very aware that
mm,
I was going into it the way I did. But the reality is, when I reflected and I had done the
mhm,
deeper work and I understood it myself more deeply, I really was going into it unconsciously saying, I don't I don't trust people.
mhm,
I don't trust that people can take care of me and help me out and do it the way I want it to do, to have it done, or whatever. It's just whatever that story was. And I didn't realize I actually unconsciously was going into situations like that. So I was constantly proving myself right all the time. I think it got to the point for me when I actually surrendered and thought, I remember even now, like I remember breathing, thinking, wow, I actually don't want to do this alone. Like I don't want to be in this space. It's not working for me. It feels lonely. It feels heavy. It's burdensome. I'm burdening myself with all of this. So I think when I got to that point of just realizing that I didn't want to do this alone, and I wanted to dissolve that narrative, and I wanted to be around people, and I wanted to be collaborative, I think that that's when my world started to change. And I started to invite people unconsciously that were showing me something different. It was like, wow, I can trust people. So there was, for me personally, and again, you say they're different things. Everyone's got different things attached to the reason why they won't ask for help. Mine was a big trust issue.
mm. And I think that for me, I wanted people, I knew enough that I wanted somebody's help. Um, I just didn't feel like I had the resources to find that person who would help me.
Mm,
Maybe, maybe it was about um, that would care as much as I cared about whatever it was, right? Like
mhm,
whatever subject we were talking about. Um, and you alluded to it earlier about, putting your life in somebody's hands, however, minute that piece of it was. But that is a big area, I think, for me as well. Just, you know, do they really do they really want what's best for me? I think that is life experience, right? I really believe that there's two people in the world, right? There's the people that are pushing you towards your goal and the people that are pulling you away from your goal. And
mhm,
it seems that in the past that there was a lot of people not necessarily pushing me towards, and not necessarily consciously not pushing me towards my goals. But if I was going to succeed, if I was going to, reach whatever it was that I was working towards, somehow that would come back and negatively affect them.
mhm,
Or if I was stepping out of my comfort zone, if I was doing these things, then what was stopping them from doing it? So subconsciously, if they pulled me back, then they didn't have to step out.
mhm.
Does that make sense? Did
It does. It
you know?
absolutely does. Well, just because we're looking at it from the mirror reflection piece of it, right? And it's one of the things that I can identify with can they have will they have my best interest at heart, basically.
Mhm. Yeah.
And I when I started to change the narrative for myself, I don't know about you, I started to change that narrative when I thought, Tanya, there's 7.5 billion people on this planet. Do you
Mm.
think that 7.5 billion people will not have your back? Like, it just
Yeah.
seems so bizarre to even have
Bizarre.
that
Mhm.
thought, that out of 7.5 billion people, that there wasn't even one single solitary soul that would have my back. And I think it for me, it was that understanding that I had to trust myself. We talked about that. I talked about my own trust. I had to trust myself. And if I
Mm.
genuinely, in my heart, Tanya's heart, could have other people's back, because I could show up for other people and have other people's back and be their village and be the person to help them. And if I could do that for others, I had to start understanding that people were happy and wanting to do that for me as well.
Mhm. Mhm. that receiving, the giving and receiving, right?
Right.
Not allowing people to give to you is really taking from them.
Yes.
Hmm.
And I don't know about you, but I know that we have very similar lives in terms of the kids that we have in sports and high level sports. And I think the biggest light bulb moment for me was through my kids when I understood that in order for them to be where they're at today, it really did take a village. And maybe not from the carpooling aspect, which it really was a big help, but I would try to take on more because I didn't want to be in everybody else's hands. At the same time, I realized there was the chiropractors, there's the physio, there was the massage therapist, there was the coach, there were all these different people in their life, the nutritionist, the dietitian. There were all these people in their life that it now they became family and it was a community. And my children's success was, their success, and their success was my children's success. And it made me realize that it took a village to get them to where they're at today, to make them the successful individuals they are. And I was like, wow, could you imagine if I had that village for myself, what that would look like? Right? And it was the first time when I took, when you're going through it when they're younger, you don't see it. But when you're later, years later, that they're now experiencing the success at the level that they're experiencing at, you're like, how did we get here? And then you realize we had to trust every single player in the game when they were injured, we had to put our faith in them and trust that they could take care of them and revive them and maintain them and think about strategies that were preventative, like all those different characteristics that went into making them successful. And I was like, wow, I don't know what that looks like.
It's funny because we've been talking and alluding to the people who are positively impacting,
Mm-hmm.
our children, is what we were just talking about. But it led me to think, there's so many people that I am so grateful for that have been in my life
Mm-hmm.
that were not necessarily those positive people, right? But it was still a community of different perspectives, which allowed me to get to where I'm at today.
Mm-hmm.
So when we talk about community and it takes a community to support, and I think some of the biggest influencers in my life were, I'm not going to say that they didn't have my back, but I think that they had my back for their own benefit. So I'm not too sure how we can word that, but were they supporting me for me, or were they supporting me for them? But I learned a lot of lessons from that as well. So, when we talk about a community and a community supporting us in reaching our goals, the naysayers, I think, have their role in that community as well. Of, of maybe not support, but allowing a different perspective.
What does that perspective look like? Like if we were, because when I hear that, I'm like, I don't want that.
You don't get that one. Well, you know what? I like, if I think about one specific person, that's he was a very successful business person. But what I learned was I didn't want to run a business like that. I wanted to be successful, but I didn't want to run it like that. I didn't want to have that air of, it's about me, but I'm going to help you. Like, I'm going to help you because it's going to help me, versus I'm going to help you because I want to help you. So yeah, he played a huge role in a lot of aha moments that I had.
But is that not a good thing though? Like, would you look at it as being from the perspective of the partnering up? Is that not a good thing, or did you feel that it was outweighed with it being more in his favor versus an equality?
I definitely felt like it was more about him.
Okay.
But maybe not at the moment. Like, this is now looking back. That yeah, it was a lot about him. It It was a lot of him. We won't go all into that, but it was a lot of him.
Well, just because when I heard that, I'm like, okay, but isn't, like, I know that including us, like, I look at my life now and how much I'm surrounded by so many high achievers and ambitious people, and we're all doing our thing, but yet we're helping each other and supporting each other so that we are successful in our endeavors, and we're showing up and we're sharing creative ideas, and just where one's lacking, the other one's picking up, and vice versa. But I get when it seems unweighted, and that's why I ask, because I get it. I understand that.
I think that is only being able to look back on it, right? Like, and to be appreciative of the things that I did learn from him, about strength, about personal empowerment, about choosing in or choosing out of the game. And so I would never want to take that away from him. Would I ever want to do business with him? No. But so grateful for him, and him being a part of my life when he was a part of my life.
Right.
But yeah, and I think that just like when we talk about that village, that there's people that play a role in your village. There's people that play a role in my village, that aren't necessarily in my village for a long time. There are some people that are in my village and they've been in my village from day one. And then there are people that come and go through, in and out of my village. And there's some that come in and then they go out and they don't come back. Right. But I do think that it's important to acknowledge and appreciate those people, because they, while they were here, they were a big part. And without them, I wouldn't be here without them. Those people that came and went.
I totally get that. I think to myself, when you talk about the village and the different seasons, I call it, like, see, we can name it something else, some people are in for seasons and lifetimes. I think it's so important that when we are understanding the village that we're looking to create around us, that we can lean on for support and be of support too. So it's reciprocal. I think it's so important. And we've had conversations, you and I personally, about know thyself. And I think it's understanding exactly who you are, what makes you tick, what feeds you, and what you want that reality to look like with the players in your life. I think when you understand that and you can have a lot of clarity and definition on that, I think it really makes it easier with the people that you're surrounded with, as it aligns with your life values, your life goals. It's an extension of your self-worth, all of those little things.
I think that as I've matured, I don't like to say get older. I like to say
I know that's a thing.
As I get mature, as I'm maturing, I'm very deliberate about who I choose to spend my time with. My time is very precious, and as is everybody's time, and so it's something that I protect. And so when I am now choosing people to come into my village, it's a very conscious and very deliberate choice that I make, as opposed to before, where it was, people came into my village and they were there. I wasn't too sure how they got there or how they, I was like, oh, here. Well, I mean, now I know how they got there, but when they show up, and I used to think that people thought like me. I used to think that people valued the same things as me. I guess I was very naive in that respect. And yeah, that was a big lesson in community and talking about villages, is even people who have done the same personal growth work and the same, awareness work, doesn't necessarily mean that they incorporate it into their lives, which was like, I didn't get that. Like you invest so much time and energy into learning techniques and tools and things to help you deal with the things that come up. But not everybody chooses to actually learn or to use them. And that for me, when I realized that, um, it I it changed everything, you know.
Mhm.
And I stumbled over my words there because I was thinking back like, God, you were really naive, Karen. Like
Oh, I was.
I
I
was
was
having my own little moment there, you know.
yes, yes.
Um,
I had that conversation with somebody else the other day of how naive I was when I entered the spiritual on this whole spiritual path.
I just assumed, I guess, that everybody was learning and growing, you know, and improving, you know, themselves, like whatever that looked like for themselves.
Hmm.
Um, it's still difficult for me to think that people aren't learning and growing, whether they know it or not, um, because I
I
think that
call it
that's what
spiritual entertainment.
spiritual entertainment.
Hmm. Yes, I call it spiritual. When we are spiritually entertaining ourselves, however, we're missing the mark on
Mm,
using all this stuff that we've downloaded. Like you said, you put your time and your energy into this. And when life gets really rough, you know, we're not using those same principles and saying, hey,
mm,
this is when we're actually supposed to be drawing upon all the
yeah.
stuff that we've learned is during these moments.
When the
Um,
challenges are there, as opposed to when it's
yeah,
going
but
easily.
we forget about it, and including myself. I'm going through something personally in my life, and I'm like, okay, I know this is the time I do the work. This is the time I do the work, versus throwing it out the window, or right, and
Yep, yep.
and abandoning it all. It's okay. What's the lesson? What's this? What am I afraid of? What do I have to learn? What do I have to grow with? What am I uncovering? You know, in the muck of it all, and in the confusion of it all, and the fatigue of it all. It's like this is when we drop on it. This is not about spiritual entertainment. This is about now I'm in a moment of a life crisis. What am I going to do?
Hmm.
How am I handling it? What resources do I have that I'm? It reminded me when I was younger. I think I was in my teenagers, and somebody had said, when little kids are taught religion in such an in-depth way, and they're memorizing whatever religion you come from, whatever you're studying, whatever those scriptures, those passages are that you're studying, you're not studying it for the sake of studying it. You're studying it so that when those moments in life show up where you have, that's challenging and you're in a turbulence, that you draw up on them.
Mm,
Well, it's the
yeah,
same thing with the spiritual work that we're doing, the personal development work we're doing. It's the exact same thing.
yeah, yeah, for sure. And it's um yeah. I just again, sorry, I'm in my head. I'm having my own little conversation in my head because I it still blows me away,
Right.
even now. And this is like 10 years ago, you know. Um and it's still obviously like I have moments where I'm just like, oh my God, like he he, he doesn't use any of that stuff. Like anyways, we could listen to me have a
We're
conversation of
digressing a little
myself. Yeah.
bit.
Listen to me and my conversation inside my head. I did want to ask you one thing about community and villages. Do you think that that stereotype that women are always, women don't support women and women are clawing each other trying to get to the top. Do you think that more women have challenges asking women for support in their communities, or do you think that women have challenges whether it's a man or a woman?
I guess my narrative is a little different where women are concerned. I haven't, maybe a handful of women I've come across that might have been, I'm just going to call it for what I feel it was. They were just snakish.
Mm,
I just feel that more women in my life, we were more supportive of one another. For me and my experiences, we may not have been on the same page in terms of the direction that we were going, so we may not have identified. I feel really supported from the perspective of, good for you. I'm happy for you, but no one really to come alongside me. And I guess for me, my village, and I don't know if this is answering your question, but my village to me looks like somebody that believes in me enough that they're going to walk alongside me and get dirty with me to help me get there. And I believed I had a village in terms of the mental support of being my cheerleader, but not necessarily getting gritty with me. And I think that that's the component that people are looking for with villages. And does that answer the question, or did I totally miss the mark on that one?
It was just a thought that I had. I mean, I think that there is that stereotype that women don't get along, I guess, as they're, you know, striving to become things. Personally, I haven't had that experience either.
Yeah.
I mean, I worked in an office where there was 10 women, and there was no drama, you know, associated with that. But how many people I came across that were floored that there was no drama when 10 women worked in the same office. So I was just wondering, like, there's no, I wasn't thinking that there should be an answer or whatnot. It was just, I haven't had that experience, but I was wondering if you had experienced any of that.
No, I find that
easier to ask a man than
right
than a woman for
I find that more women, at least in my circle, I find that women were very supportive of one another. And where I just always felt that I wasn't in alignment with the type of energy that I wanted with me, which was more of the, you know, I think for me in my community, and I'm saying this, I'm amazed that I'm actually going to declare this on TV. I think for me in my circle, it was more, people were more settled. They were more complacent, you know, just really easygoing, chill. And for my village, it didn't work for me. You know, I wanted more energy, something. I'm a builder. I'm an expander. I like to see that. So I find it really I found it challenging to ask for help. So where my trust issue fell into place was asking for help because of the people I was surrounded with being more complacent and comfortable. That's the word I'm looking for. They were more comfortable. I didn't trust putting my life in their hands because I didn't think that they were going to strive and push the boundaries to help me get to where I felt that I wanted the vision to go for myself. They may not have had a vision for themselves. They wanted to support me, but I just didn't feel that village was the right fit for me to push through the barriers to get me to where I wanted to go.
So then do you think that there's not as many, like if you describe yourself as a go-getter and a builder, do you think that there's not as many women who are like that? Or there just wasn't enough women in your life at that time that were like that?
Oh, right now in my life, I've got like a world of women. I want to say that they meet the 7.5 billion people on the planet. No, I find that at that time it just wasn't. That's not who I was surrounded with. Where now it's, you know, I feel like I'm a sponge learning from all the women around me, all the ambitious women around me. We've got Lolo Jennings, like she just logged on, and she's, you know, what a great conversations lady. Thank you. You know, I just think about all the women in my sphere and I'm like, oh my gosh, you guys have all these things to teach me. This is my village. This is it. Can I reach out for help? Can I ask you this? Can we this? And we're all supporting and encouraging each other along the way. And I think it's just fabulous. And it's making me realize that even if it's not somebody that's walking alongside you in the sense where they're helping you with your marketing or this or that, just that community of vibe that together we have purpose, we have value, we have mission, we're collaborating, we're feeding off of each other. It's a village. We are pushing each other forward, and we are open to ask each other for help. We can show up being who we are in the moment so that we can support each other to get through. And I know it's not just about women, it's about men and women, but in this particular moment, we're talking about women. And I love it. I just think it's phenomenal.
Yeah. Well, I think that just goes to show that the community is always there. that in the past, maybe we weren't ready to receive the community.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we weren't ready to engage in that level of community.
Mm-hmm.
Because
And I
I'm a
know
big
I wasn't.
believer.
I can
Yeah.
honestly say I wasn't.
Well, no, because I think that whether we can consciously or not consciously, um, our results and our environment prove of what we're attracting,
Mm-hmm.
right? So it's just a reflection of what's going on inside. So if we don't see that community, if we don't see people supporting us, if we don't, it's something that we're putting out there, right? Because we're
Mm-hmm.
attracting that into our lives. So the fact now that both of us can say, we have that community and it's very different than it looked, 5, 10 years ago, is just a reflection that we've changed, that we've grown,
Mm-hmm.
that we are now more open and accepting these people into our lives to
And I
support
think for
us.
me, I don't know about you where it happened, but I really believe my transition happened when I looked at my kids and I was like, gosh, I was really happy for their accomplishments for them.
Mm,
But I thought, how did they get there? Like, what did it look like? And I thought, wow, it would took a village. Like they had the right support, the right people, they had the right community around them.
mm,
That everybody in that community, the chiro, the physio, it didn't matter who you are, they were all pushing towards the same goal, and that
towards.
was to keep them healthy, to keep them moving. Like it was all moving in that direction,
Mm,
right? So whereas you're now sitting in this space now, and I'm sitting in this space where we're moving in a direction, we're with this community that we're supporting each other to move into this direction.
forward. Yeah, and it it's um it's such a peaceful place to be,
Mm-hmm.
because I think that for me before, not knowing where the resources were or if they were there, or the the struggle, is this going to work or is this not going to work, or now I don't have those kind of thoughts, I guess, because I know that the community is there and that there's always somebody there when I need them.
Mm-hmm.
I connected with a woman uh, last week. I'm going to say randomly, but it wasn't randomly. I said yes to go to an event because of a relationship that I had 10 years ago with this gentleman. Um, Met this woman, and she's, we connected, and she's like, why do you think that, we've been connected? And I automatically said, I have absolutely no idea, but I'm so excited to find out why. And I said, because, I think we connected because I manifested you.
Mm-hmm.
And, I think that the community piece of it, we manifest that community. Okay, I need somebody to help me with, a website. I need somebody to help me with technology. I need somebody to help me with, okay, what does, this look like from a business proposal piece of it?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I mean, I have the ideas, I have this, I have that. And so when I think about those things, inevitably, like a day or two, somebody's like, hey, you know what? This is what I do. I'm like, oh my God, I need you, you know? And I think that for me, that community is building that way of just putting it out there and having these people come in to my life because I'm very different than, I once was.
Right, right,
Mm.
absolutely. So, what do you think that how can somebody identify that they do not have the proper village? They're not in a village. And you don't have to necessarily be in business, I
Mm.
think. I think it's just that the village is really that community support. I think in society, we're bred to be isolated, like nobody wants to be inconvenienced, right?
I think that for me, um, how I know that I have a community is that when I'm having those challenging days, is there somebody that I'm reaching out to?
Hmm.
Um, because in the past, those challenging days I would face alone
Hmm.
because of everything that we just talked about, whether it was
Hmm.
trust or whatnot. So for me, it's not when things are going really, really well. Um, it's when I'm having those challenging days and whatever that looks like. Is there somebody that I can reach out to that I can feel comfortable to be vulnerable with?
Mm-hmm.
That's for me. That's for me. Being vulnerable was um I don't know where that one is at. It was a challenge, and being able to reach out and be vulnerable and not have to be on all the time. You know,
Mm-hmm.
that need for perfection and being able to let that go, reaching out to those people and those people being there to support me. That's how I know that I have a village.
Right.
Mm.
It's interesting when you're talking. What came to my mind as you're talking and it triggered where, again, we can go in 5,000 different directions on it takes a village and why. And I think part of it is also our narrative, because it was that martyr syndrome that I could do it by myself. I didn't need any
Mm.
help. It was the trust mixed into that with that narrative. And it also allowed, and I'm sure I've had this conversation with many before, it allows us to keep that identity alive of the victim,
Mm. Mm-hmm.
of the
Yep.
martyr. I don't have help. I don't have support. It must be, I used to hear this conversation a lot by others, well, if I had that, of course my life would look like that. And if, yeah, well, but I'm like, yeah, but we get caught up on, we're not even aware that we're caught up in the victim mode.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And we've become so attached to that story that we won't even allow ourselves to be open to say, hey, let's come out of that narrative. Well, you know what? How do we create a life like that? Flipping it. How do we create a life like that? That allows us to have that as part of our life to support the help. But it also takes a lot of work to understand that it's also time to get rid of that narrative as well.
Well, and I think that just goes back to what we were talking about putting it out there and creating it, or bringing it into your life. If you are continuously telling yourself that narrative, that victim mentality, then maybe those people aren't going to show up in your life. They're going to treat you as a victim if that's the role that you're playing.
Right.
And for me, I don't want somebody treating me as a victim in my community.
Mm-hmm.
I want somebody to say, Karen, like, stand up and figure out, problem solution. Like, this is your problem. Let's move on.
Mm-hmm.
And so, that narrative, like you said, whatever it is that we're telling ourselves, then we're creating for ourselves, that we need to take responsibility for that. If we don't have a community, it's not because the community is not there. It's because of something inside.
Mm-hmm.
And I always say that change starts with ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
So if somebody is finding themselves not in a community or not having that supportiveness around, then, stand in front of the mirror and take a look and examine what it is what I did, what was it that I was doing that wasn't allowing these people to come into my life,
Mm-hmm.
right?
And then it goes back to what you're saying, vulnerability. Nobody wants to admit or feel that sense of vulnerability that, I got to let you into something that I'm struggling with, that it was a secret all along. And now I'm
Mm-hmm,
letting you in
mm-hmm.
on the secret and being vulnerable by sharing it with you.
It just as you're speaking there, something popped into my head about it changed when I could stand in my own skin and know my greatness, know what I was able to do. And if I have this gift and this greatness inside of me, my gift and greatness isn't yours. But if we put ours together, then what can we build, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm good at what I do because I spend hours and hours and hours practicing it, right? Just like an accountant, spends hours and hours and hours doing tax stuff, right? Well, there was a time when I was like, I am not paying anybody to do my taxes. Like, I can do that. Now, no, that is your lane. That is your specialty. You go nuts, right?
Yes.
He enjoys it. My accountant, he loves what he does. Great. I don't love that anymore, right? And I think that was a big thing for me is being able to know myself and know that somebody else, their greatness is what I need. I need that support. And
Right.
you can't be great in everything,
And I
right?
like the way you articulated that. It was, their greatness. You need their greatness.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think that that's
I think
powerful.
that with with whatever it is that you're trying to build, to create, to, surround yourself with, that you're not looking for a mirror image of yourself,
Mm-hmm.
right? That the things that I'm good at, the things that you're good at, are very different than the things that somebody else is good at. And together we can create. So the analogy I use with my children is often about a puzzle, right? So a puzzle piece, and I'm a very good puzzle piece in what I do. I have these skills, right? You have your skills and whatnot. And, to put those together, then we can create something bigger, right? That no two people are going to look alike, though,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's about being vulnerable and asking, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You know.
I remember when you said the accountant, and it triggered me, and I have to bring this up because with that whole trust piece, it's trusting people to take care of me. It's trusting life to take care of me.
Mm,
And when you talk about the whole piece fitting together, it's like allowing that picture to form in your life. And I remember my accountant, I had had an accountant before, and I knew intuitively he wasn't taking care of me. So he was just proving my theory right, that life doesn't show up to
yeah.
take care of me. I end up with this different accountant. Something happens, and she looks at me and she says she had an accent. I love it, but I have to thing the accent because it was so beautiful. She's like, "Listen, I control the numbers, okay?" And I said, "What?" And she goes, "I look after the numbers, not you." She says,
Mm,
"I take care of you. You don't take care of me." And I said, "Okay." And it was part of my own healing in that simple moment of saying,
mm,
"Okay," and I could breathe. She said, it was like the universe saying, "I'm taking care of you." And she echoed. And I knew in that moment I was ready for it. I didn't know how to let go of allowing something greater than me to take care of me.
mm,
And it was and I can't say that I'm fully there today, but it was one step closer in opening the door of, "I'm
mm.
here to take care of you." And she's been my accountant since. I love her. She's wonderful. She takes very good care of me.
She takes care of the numbers. But you think about, when you're putting together like um the boardroom, and you want somebody who's good at accounting, you want somebody who's good at whatever else. I mean, see, I don't know business, right? But okay, so if I look at my mastermind group, or my, what I want to create, like I need somebody who's an accountant, because I don't have enough bandwidth to be able to do that and to
Mhm,
be good at what I need to be good at, right?
mhm.
I want somebody who's as passionate about accounting as I am about supporting people and helping
Right,
people, right?
right.
And then I need somebody who, maybe they're the ones who are always the shoulder to cry on, right?
Mhm,
Always there, always listening. That is their gift. They're a good listener. I need that in my corner, right?
mhm,
And being able to see other people's greatness and how that we can work together,
mhm.
you know. Um, and I guess that, as I'm talking it out loud, that is exactly how I've created my community, identifying people's greatness and what they have
And
to
piecing it
offer the
together.
world.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, okay, so you're great at this, I'm great at this. How can we work together to, to do whatever, to build,
Right. I
you
like
know?
the way you put the boardroom. I know you were filling up the seats.
Good, because I lost all the seeds. I don't know what they're all named. I just know the accountants,
But I
the
really
CEO.
do like the boardroom analogy because it's filling those seats of being in the
Hmm.
boardroom. And I'm going to do it because it's a topic people talk to me a lot about, especially since I've launched my show. A lot of people come to me and they're like, "Well, how are you doing it? What are you doing? How are you marketing? And how are you doing this?" And it's like filling up the boardroom. There's the content writer, you might have somebody that's exclusive for content writing sitting at your boardroom table. You might have somebody that's exclusive for editing videos
Hmm.
at your table, somebody managing all your social media aspects, all your social media handles, somebody that's looking at algorithms, that's solely doing that. So you're now filling up the boardroom seats with people that are specialized in
Yes.
in their area of expertise. So you're not asking one person to manage the content writing. You're not asking one person to manage the content writing with the social media handles. You're not asking one person to handle the content writing, social media handles, and algorithms. Like, so you're now niching it out to the different talents. And believe me, I remember Wayne Dyer once saying that he had this cleaning lady that she just loved to clean, and she was so happy coming to clean. So it's about finding the right people that are passionate about what they do and having them sit at your boardroom table.
Well, I mean, it's like, I think about my husband, right? Or your partner or your wife or whatnot. Like, they are not everything, right? Like,
Mhm.
if I want to have a deep spiritual conversation, is my husband the first person I'm going to choose? Maybe not, right? Um, if I want to go shopping, is he the one I'm going to choose to go shopping with? Absolutely not. And so not one person cannot fill all of those roles in your life. And so when you're building a community, I think that you're building those people who have those qualities that you need to fulfill yourself,
Mhm.
or to support yourself. Um, it's just impossible for one person to do all of those
To
things.
do all of it, absolutely.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
you know what? In all the years that I did it alone, I was no further ahead, actually more further behind. And I look back and
Mhm.
I'm like, but I do agree that it's layered. I had to be A, ready for it. B, I had to understand what it was that I needed support in, what I required healing in, what I was willing, I call risk tolerance level, what I was willing to emotionally risk with trusting. Like, there's so many different pieces. Again, my biggest light bulb moment was with my kids, and it was like, how did they become successful the way they did at such a young age? And it made me realize that they had support, and they had a village, and they had a community that was working towards the same goal, which was their vision. And it was
Mm.
like, it's for visionaries like yourself and I. Not everybody in this world wants, we hear it in the movie The Secret, not everybody wants the Mercedes, not everybody wants the big house.
Mhm.
Everybody has their own definition of what they want. As visionaries, it's about having the people that want to support your vision.
Mm.
It's very challenging in all my dealings. It's not to say that it's not possible, but in my dealings, when I'm dealing with very strong visionaries, it is very challenging for strong visionaries to really partner together, and be able, because your creative visionaries are creative, and it's
Mm.
very
Mhm.
challenging. So it's important, I think, in my experience, that if you're a big, strong, creative visionary, that you have people that you get them married to your vision and get them
Yeah.
slowly moving in the direction
Yeah.
of that vision.
Well, I think I mean, two things came up for me with that, is that it doesn't matter, I don't think, whether you're building a business or a vision or whatnot. Having a community is about getting through life.
Yes.
Is it's call it a community, call it, friend group, call it, put whatever label you want on it. But we all um, we all need to surround ourselves with supportive,
Yes.
greatness.
The
Um,
right people that are going to be there.
yeah, but I mean, but
What were
even
the
when
two
you
type of
surround
people
yourself,
that you said were in this world again? There were people that were
people are pushing you towards your goal, and people that are pulling you away from your goal.
right. So even if,
Hmm.
and I get what you're saying there, because even if you don't have a business or a vision, it's just everyday life, there are
Yeah.
people that are going
People
to
are
show up.
people that are pushing you towards happiness. People are
Right.
that are pushing you towards, sadness. Um,
Hmm.
whatever, whatever polls that you want to use, mm, you can, if you look at the people that are in your life and do an inventory, right? Just easily, like, think about the 5 people that you hang around with the most, right?
Hmm.
Are they pushing you towards your goal? Are they supportive? Are they, you know, do they like to see you happy? Do they like to see you succeed? Um, are they happy when you're happy? Like,
Hmm.
those type of things. Again, not from a necessarily a business perspective, but just from a societal perspective, right?
Hmm.
Um, because I don't think that anybody goes through this alone, this being life. Um, yeah, just got cut off there a little bit. I don't
You
think that
left
we
me
go
alone
through
to
this.
do it on my own.
I did, yeah. Well, it didn't cut off completely, so we're still here. Um, yeah, it's an interesting. This whole topic is very interesting to me, and has been very enlightening for me to go back and to look at what has happened in my past, and how I've gotten to where I am today. And um, it is all about community, you know.
Mhm.
I mean, I think that that's why people struggle so much with what we're going through right now, right? Is feeling like there isn't that community, or the community is not there as it once was, you know. That we are social creatures, and the one thing that I have learned is that I am in control of the people that I socialize with, right? I can pick and choose those people. And yeah, and I guess just coming full circle, I want to make sure that I'm picking the people um, that are going to really be there for me.
Mhm.
Um,
Mhm.
I think that that's important.
It absolutely is. I think that years ago, hundreds of years ago, they operated more in a village format. I think North America in general isn't as much of a village setting as other
Mm,
parts of the world.
yeah. Yeah.
And I think that we could definitely use more of that in this day and age.
Yeah, I would agree with you on that. And you think about, my in-laws when they came to Canada. Their village is anybody that came from the area of their country. Like, if you said I'm from here, oh, okay, we're friends. Like, we're automatically connected, and therefore you're part of my community.
And whatever's in
Um,
my fridge is in your fridge, and whatever.
yeah, and I do see that from a lot of different countries. Whereas, when you think about, do you know your neighbors? Do you know, on your street, are you connected in your own little community, which might be very different if you lived in, a different, England or Jamaica or wherever it is that you live. I would agree with you on that one, that
Yeah,
North America is
a little
is
different.
different.
We're changing. I think that this pandemic is really forcing us to, well, within whatever we can, because we're also being isolated and locked down, but with whatever way we can, it's created a whole different connection in a good way. So it's been nice to see. We've got 2 minutes left. Any last nugget on how somebody can embrace inviting community into their life?
Um, I think that the big thing that sticks out in my experience is being deliberate and being conscious about choosing people, and choosing people into your community doesn't necessarily mean that if they don't get into your community, that you don't like them, or that you don't value them. But um, there's only so much time that you can have to spend with people,
Mhm.
and if the community that you're choosing, um, you're spending time outside of your community, and those people might not be, supporting and pushing you to where you're going. um, you can't ever get that time back. So
Mhm.
just to be deliberate and to be conscious of the people that you're choosing to spend time with.
Well, thank
Yeah.
you for a good conversation on vulnerability. I'm going to call it couples what it takes a village.
All of our conversations could be vulnerability.
Right, absolutely. It will be. It can be. I mean, Karen, thank you for joining us this evening. Thank you guys all for tuning in. Join us tomorrow evening, where we will be talking to Teresa Simpatico with quantum creation, another big topic. You can find Karen on Karen Rose on Instagram and Facebook, and also under Physio Function Canada. If you want to reach out to Karen for a one-on-one coaching and also for physiotherapy, please reach out to Karen. It was a pleasure having you. Thank you as always. I like our conversation. I
Thank
like
you.
conversations.
Well, I like spending time with you. So
thank you. Thank you. If you want to take your life to the next level, please visit thetanyaexperience.com. I'd love to work with you one-on-one to help you get there. Also, please remember to subscribe and like Tanya Talks and the Tanya Experience on Instagram, Facebook, and on Twitter. All right. Have a good evening, everyone. And thanks again. Take care. Good night.
Good night.